This is the Committee on Rules. We have attained a quorum with Councilman Squilla, Vice Chair of the Committee, Councilwoman Sanchez, Councilman Taubenberger, and Councilwoman Reynolds Brown. We are going to do something slightly different to start out. We are going to temporarily recess the public hearing and go into a public meeting on Bill number 170678, whose public hearing was completed on Monday, November 27th, and now again, we're just in the public meeting aspect. The record will also reflect Councilman Jones, a member of the committee, is present. Ms. Marconi, will you please read the title of Bill number 170678?
Bill number 170678, an ordinance amending Title 9 of the Philadelphia, or Title 7 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Housing Code by adding a new chapter 7-200 entitled Mixed Income Housing Program to provide for affordable housing standards, amending section 14-702 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Mixed Income Housing to make related changes, amending chapters 14-600 and 14-700 of the Philadelphia Code entitled respectively Use Regulations and Development Standards to amend certain zoning standards relating to residential development and making related amendments, all under certain terms and conditions.
Okay, thank you. And again, we are in the public meeting of this bill, and Chair recognizes Councilwoman Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before I move for the amendments, I wanted to apologize that in the trying to finish off a 5-hour hearing session, we neglected to adopt the amendments that altered the bill significantly, which led to some confusion by residents in that the bill posted online did not have the amendments. And so just wanted to clarify for the record, the amendments limit the zoning changes to what is currently in the zoning code in CMX 3, 4, and 5. It only adds RMM 3 and 4. It makes the program mandatory, and it sets forth a payment in lieu of. That is the only difference in the bill once amended. And with that, I move for the adoption of the amendment.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the amendments, which have been distributed, by the way, are approved. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. And again, the chair recognizes, the amendments are approved. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that Bill 170678 as amended be moved out of committee with no recommendation and no rule suspension.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Bill number 170678 as amended is, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Doing this fast. You all right?
No, yeah.
Okay. Bill number 170678 as amended is reported out as committee with no recommendation, and there will be no suspension of rules. So just so everybody understands, that means the bill will not come before the full council until our first meeting in late January. That being the case, we will now recess the public meeting and go back into the public hearing to our regular schedule. And Ms. Marconi, will you please read the title of our first bill before us today?
Bill number 170927, an ordinance approving the plan, estimated costs, and proposed method of assessment and charges of the Center City District for and concerning business improvements and administrative services to the Central Business District of the City of Philadelphia for 2018-2022, amending an ordinance, Bill number 1069, approved November 2nd, 1990, as amended by Bill number 960631, approved November 25th, 1996, and further amended by Bill number 120800, approved December 21st, 2012, adopted pursuant to the Municipal Authorities Act of 1945, PL 382, as amended, in order to add to the Central Business District area to be served by Center City District, the surface of property more commonly known as Viaduct Rail Park, and approving estimated costs for debt service through 2045, all under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you. And before we have testimony, I just want to, for the record, should indicate Councilman Heenan, member of the committee, is present. Please. Identify yourself and proceed.
Good morning, Councilman Greenlee and members of the Rules Committee. My name is Dennis Murphy, and I'm the Director of Commercial Corridor Development for the Philadelphia Commerce Department, and I'm also the liaison to the bids in Philadelphia for the Commerce Department. I'm here to testify in support of Bill 170927, approving a new 5-year plan for services and improvements for the Center City District. Creation of bids is consistent with the city's effort to support business and property owner-led efforts to improve the environment within their areas. In 1990, property owners and business people in Center City came together to plan and pay for supplemental services through creation of a bid. Center City District has used assessment funds to provide cleaning and maintenance, safety and crime prevention, capital improvements, marketing, and promotions. In recent years, CCD has improved and maintained important parks and public spaces. The proposed plan will continue to provide these services and activities that are critical for maintaining Center City. The efforts of CCD to keep Center City competitive and successful continue to be critical to Philadelphia, and these efforts deserve our support. Thank you for your consideration. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Murphy. We'll hear from Mr. Levy, and then if there's any questions.
Good morning, Councilman Greenlee, members of council. My name is Paul Levy. I'm president of the Center City District. I'm joined by Nick Maley, who is our counsel. I believe you have copies of my testimony, yes. But if not, I have additional copies here.
No, we have it.
I'll be very brief. I'm very pleased to offer my testimony in support of a new plan and budget for the Center City District for the years 2018 through 22. This will be the 7th time we've been before council since 1990. With council's approval, this will enable the CCD to commence our 27th year of providing services to the largest employment center in Philadelphia, a place that provides 42% of all jobs in the city. With your support, we'll be able to continue after December 31st, 2017 to provide job opportunities with union scale wages and benefits, SEIU for our sidewalk cleaners, the Security Police, Fire and Professionals Union of America for our community service representatives. Together, they total 170 sidewalk cleaners and public safety employees. The overwhelming number who come from the neighborhoods of Philadelphia. I've attached to my testimony a map of showing where all our staff live. Many of whom on our cleaning crews are formerly homeless individuals, returning citizens, or those individuals making the transition from welfare to work. With council support, we will continue to remove graffiti, improve landscaping and lighting, and manage and program 4 parks in Center City. I'm very pleased in that regard to let you know we will continue to provide scores of free programming in Dilworth Park, and in response to a request from Councilwoman with response to Councilwoman Blondell Reynolds Brown, we will have in February a free skating program for neighborhood residents across the city. In 2016, 30% of the contracts for service at Dilworth Park were with African-American-owned firms. We will end 2017 with a contracting rate of closer to 38.4%. Very pleased, on the weekend after Thanksgiving, we had more than 60,000 people in the park. So we're continuing our commitment to African-American-owned business participation, minority participation, and finally, with your support, we will bring Phase 1 of the rail park to conclusion in early 2018, expand our cleaning and safety and graffiti removal services in partnership with the Department of Parks and Recreation and the Friends of the Rail Park. So this proposed reauthorization is to continue existing services and to slightly modify the boundaries so that we can work with Parks and Recreation on the maintenance of the rail park itself. The balance of my testimony, I probably don't need to read through, but it summarizes the formal process we went through. Suffice it to say, at the end of that approval process, we had one owner owning 2 properties out of 1,688. Or 1/10% of the owners object, and they represented 1/1000th of the assessed value. That is significantly below the 33% threshold. On the basis of that, I'm eager to respond to any questions you have for us on this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Levy, and I would be remiss, I know we've talked about this, if I didn't mention how transformed Dilworth Park has become. As somebody who's hung around City Hall for a few years, I remember coming out there, particularly in the winter months, and it was quite desolate and
Right.
quite uninviting, and now it is everything positive. So the CCD certainly deserves tremendous credit for what you've done in other areas, but that
Sure.
just stands out.
Thank you
my
very
opinion. And the attachments that you talked about will be made part of the record.
Yes.
And the record should also reflect Councilman Johnson, a member of the committee, is present.
Right.
Are there any questions for Mr. Levy? You do? Yeah. Councilwoman Reynolds Brown.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning. Paul Levy, thank you very much for that shout out, but more importantly, thank you for responding to my official interest to ensure that not Love Park, but Dilworth Plaza indeed mirrors the demographics of the city of Philadelphia. I do appreciate you and the board looking at that closely and then taking action. I would want you to update us on how well you're doing now with diversity of the board when it comes to women,
Right.
and the linkage that Center City District has made with arts and cultural institutions around Center City.
Sure. I think, one, with your support in the last committee hearing, and hopefully today, you will approve board members that will give us a board which will be 27% minority, 18% women on the board. In terms of overall staffing, would you like me to give you the overall stats?
Please,
in
for the record,
Let me
yes.
And
pull
just a
those up.
little bit closer to a microphone, please.
Sure,
Just a little
absolutely.
bit. Yeah.
Glad to do that. Sure. In terms of the total staffing of the Center City District, 60% of our staff are African American, 8% are Latino, 3% are Asian, and 27% are women.
Very well. And the second question was the linkages that you're cultivating.
Oh, yes, I'm
with
sorry.
area arts and cultural institutions.
I think we're trying to do that in several ways. When we opened the park, we did a neighborhood festival in which we invited performing groups from across the city to the park. We did that again this fall. We are inviting different arts and cultural groups to come and perform. If you go into the concourse, you will note that we've just added new digital screens on the walkway that connects to Suburban Station, and we're featuring all the murals of the Mural Arts program that are across the entire city. And we see that as a venue, a digital screen where we'll be able to showcase artists, photographers from across the city. So our prototype now is with the Mural Arts Society, but we intend to continue that through visual arts and then performing arts within the park itself.
So that's done directly through Center City District?
That's directly through us, that's correct.
Okay, then, so for those neighborhood art performing companies that might be interested in having an experience, they need to contact you
They would
directly?
contact us, that's correct. We
Okay.
program all events there. We haven't yet developed the guidelines for the digital screens. We just did something with mural arts until we figured them out, but we'll have those in January.
And then lastly, where do you see Center City District in the next 3 to 5 years? What's the next mountain you want to, or elephant you want to eat?
I think, obviously, we're committed to the basics of clean and safe, and our uniform presence in Center City is absolutely key. We're looking to continue to upgrade landscaping. We'd like to do much more aggressive holiday lighting throughout the entire downtown. That's something I think we've lost. We think with the redevelopment of Market East, there's a real opportunity to do some of the lighting that we've done on City Hall for the holidays there. Clearly, we're looking at how we continue to improve our parks, and then the Rail Park Phase 1 will be opening in the spring. That's the park that comes off of Broad Street and goes to 12th and Noble.
So that's spring 2018?
Spring 2018, yeah. If you go up there today, it's virtually done. We're just working through one more bridge issue, but I would say March, April, we'll be opening that parks. If I had my wish, there's a second phase, which is owned by the Reading Company, which is the balance of that. We'd love to work on that, but that's still on the wish list, not on the doing list yet.
Okay. Well, I'm sure if it's on your wish list, you'll get it done.
Well, I appreciate your vote of confidence. Thank you.
But to echo Chairman Greenlee, the face and experience on Dilworth has just changed exponentially.
Right.
And it, for those of us who love the arts and love diversity in the arts and love the mix of experiences that is happening there around the year, the Center City District does indeed need to be commended. So I thank you.
Thank you. The only other thing I'd want to add is we continue to work with groups across the city who approach us for advice either on improving their own improvement districts or creating new ones, and we're committed to provide that at no cost to anyone, just advice in partnership with the Commerce Department to strengthen other improvement districts in our neighborhoods.
That's important, thank you. Okay, any other questions for Mr. Levy or the panel? Seeing none? See how easy that was today, Paul?
Well, no, I appreciate it. I just obviously would urge your support for this, reporting it out,
Sure.
and full approval. So thank you very much
Sure.
for all your support through the
You're
years.
welcome. And thank you for all you do. Is there anyone else here to testify on bill number 170927? Seeing none, Ms. Marconi, our next bill, please.
Bill number 170986, an ordinance amending section -14-513 of the Philadelphia Code entitled TOD, Transit Oriented Development Overlay District, to revise requirements and designations relating to said overlay district and making related changes, all under certain terms and conditions.
Good morning, Ms. Burns. How are you?
I got that.
Morning.
986, right?
Yep.
There's a lot.
98, yes. 986, right.
There's a lot on the agenda, so
Yeah,
making
I
sure.
know, I know.
Good morning, Councilman Greenlee and members of the Rules Committee. I am Paula Burns, planner with the Development Division of the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I'm here to testify on bill number 170986, which was introduced by Councilmember Blackwell on November 16th, 2017. Bill number 170986 makes 46th Street Station on the Market Frankfurt line the first transit-oriented development TOD transit station to be listed in the zoning code. Consequently, this would map the transit-oriented development overlay such that includes all lots lying in whole or in part within 500 linear feet of any entrance to or exit from this station. In addition to this change, bill number 170986 modifies the applicable code section by eliminating a height increase for lots in the lower density residential districts within this overlay. Councilmember Blackwell worked with the Planning Commission staff to craft this legislation, which is intended to accomplish the following goals in the area surrounding the 46th Street Station. To increase the development potential, including for the city-owned parcel at 4601 Market Street, to foster a safer and better pedestrian environment, to provide greater incentives for the provision of public benefits by developers, which will include affordable housing, and to reduce parking requirements as a means of promoting alternatives to automobile usage. This legislation supports many of the goals recommended in the Philadelphia 2035 Comprehensive Plan. The City Planning Commission will review Bill number 170986 at its meeting on December 12, 2017, where the staff of the City Planning Commission will recommend for its approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Burns? Yes, Councilwoman Burns Brown?
Please speak, if you would, to how the immediate community is engaged with the 2035 Comprehensive Plan.
The 2035 Comprehensive Plan has been an ongoing, roughly
Evolving.
10-year project. So this was in the University District Plan, and I'm sorry, I've had to think about that one. So this was discussed at the meetings, at the public meetings we had. We're also doing currently the West District Plan, where we're about to have our 3rd District Plan meeting tonight, and it has been put on all of the boards, so everybody that has come out to the meetings has been able to talk to it. We've worked with the community groups for this and some, I believe, Enterprise Zone,
Okay,
to reach out and make sure that the public was aware of this.
All right, so I used to be a member of those community groups. When you say work with the community groups, what specifically do you mean?
I was not the planner for this. I did not go to any of the meetings, so I don't want to speak.
So
too far
what
on
are the protocols in the office when you work with community groups?
Because we have a community planning section, so I don't want to speak so far out for them.
Okay.
But what it is usually we go out to some of their community meetings, show what we're interested in doing, ask for their input. We usually come back to a second community meeting to show them how we took their input, how we created that, to make sure that they are involved in the process.
And so the follow-up happens by way of emails, it happens by way of subsequent meetings, how does it happen?
It's usually by subsequent meetings, but some community groups choose to do email or just phone call conversations, but we are always willing to go out for second or third meetings.
Okay. Is the transit-oriented development transit station project, is this the first?
This will be the first. We have a few others in the works, but this is actually our first designated TOD.
Okay, and I'll give kudos to my staff who helped craft the transit-oriented development. So we're pleased to see that it's now being utilized.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions for Ms. Burns on this bill? Seeing none, anyone else here to testify on bill number 170986? Seeing none, Ms. Marconi on next bill, please.
Bill number 170987, an ordinance to amend the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing the zoning designations of certain areas of land located within an area bounded by Chestnut Street, 40th Street, Locust Street, 42nd Street, Woodland Avenue, 43rd Street, Spruce Street, and 45th Street, all under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you. Ms. Burns?
Good morning, Councilman Greenlee and members of the Rules Committee. I'm Paula Burns, planner with the Development Division of the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I'm here to testify on bill number 170987, which was introduced into City Council on November 16, 2017 by Councilmember Blackwell. Bill number 170987 amends the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing the zoning designations of certain areas of land located within an area bounded by Chestnut Street, 40th Street, Locust Street, 42nd Street, Woodland Avenue, 43rd Street, Spruce Street, and 45th Street. This bill correctively remaps areas of high-density zoning to single and two-family attached residential to match existing conditions and to protect the character of the neighborhood. This remapping bill conforms to the recommendations of the University Southwest District Plan, which was adopted by the City Planning Commission in 2013. The City Planning Commission will consider Bill 170987 at its meeting of December 12, 2017, where staff will recommend it for approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Burns on this bill? Seeing none. Anyone else here to testify on bill number 170987? Just for the record, there will be an amendment offered at the meeting on this bill, which adjusts the maps slightly. Our next bill, Ms. Marconi, please.
Bill number 170990, an ordinance to amend the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing the zoning designations of certain areas of land located within an area bounded by Oxford Street, 22nd Street, Jefferson Street, and 24th Street.
All right. Good morning again. Councilman Greenlee and members of the Rules Committee. I am Paula Burns, planner with the Development Division of the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I'm here to testify on bill number 170990, which was introduced into City Council on November 16, 2017 by Councilmember Greenlee on behalf of Council President Clark. Bill number 170990 amends the Philadelphia zoning maps by remapping an area bounded by Oxford Street, 22nd Street, Jefferson Street, and 24th Street. This bill rezones the northwest corner of the former Bloomberg Apartments superblock to allow Habitat for Humanity to build 21 single-family homes. The current zoning of RM2 residential multifamily will be changed to the more appropriate RSA 5 residential single-family attached. The homes will be subdivided from the rest of the superblock at a later date. The City Planning Commission will consider bill number 170990 at its meeting of December 12, 2017, where the staff will recommend it for approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Burns on this bill? Seeing none, I believe on this one we have additional testimony.
Taya Wynn and Kerry Rothman.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Chairman and members of the Rules Committee. We're from Habitat for Humanity. My name is Taya Wynn, and I'm the Director of Project Planning.
I'm Kerry Rothman, Director of Strategic Partnerships.
We just want to let you guys know that we are looking to remap this area where Habitat plans to build up to 21 single-family homes. We are seeking this designation because RSA 5 is a single-family designation, and we sell homes fee simple to families earning between 30 and 60% of area median income. With the current zoning of RM2, it would have to have 15,000 square foot minimums on the first floor, which is not suitable for single-family homes.
And we've been working with the community for several years now with the Neighborhood Advisory Council. We've worked at the rec center. We've done almost 50 substantial home repair stabilization projects there. So the community is well aware of our intentions for building, and we've gotten full support.
Okay, great, thank you. And we're well aware of the work you all do, so it's, thank you for everything you do. As long as there are no questions? Okay, seeing none. Anyone else here to testify on bill number 170990? Seeing none. Ms. Marconi, on next bill, please.
Bill number 170997, an ordinance to amend the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing the zoning designations of certain areas of land located within an area bounded by the northeast, by the Manioc Canal on the southeast, by Green Lane on the southwest, by the Schuylkill River, and on the northwest by Leverington Avenue, with a straight line extending from Leverington Avenue to the Schuylkill River. Further, to approve the residential mixed-use 2 district RMX2 master plan for the foregoing design areas of land. Further, to amend certain provisions of section 14-503 of the Philadelphia Code in connection with the foregone master plan. Further, to amend the property maintenance code to exclude the foregoing master plan from certain provisions of said property maintenance code.
Thank you. Ms. Burns?
Good morning, Councilman Greenlee and members of the Rules Committee. I am Paula Burns, planner with the Development Division of the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I am here to testify on bill number 170997, which was introduced into City Council on November 16, 2017 by Councilmember Jones. Bill number 170997 will rezone a portion of Venice Island from its current CMX2 commercial mixed-use designation to a new RMX2 master plan designation. This bill will also approve the proposed master plan for this site. The master plan provides for new multifamily residential structures with accessory parking. In order for this project to receive permits over the counter, a number of changes to the zoning code text are proposed. The first is that certain provisions of the Main Street, Manioc, and Venice Island neighborhood commercial area overlay districts will not apply to this site. Essentially, this would exempt this project from the more onerous requirement of one parking space per bedroom. Second, a provision is added to ensure that only an 8 feet setback is required from the Schuylkill River. There is a separate 50 feet buffer requirement for most other areas, but on Venice Island, only 8 feet is required by the existing overlay. This provision clears up that ambiguity. Third, this property will be accepted out of the standard landscaping requirements of the zoning code. Generally, this consists of a 5-foot landscape buffer along streets, a buffer along property lines, and a requirement that 10% of the interior of the parking lot be landscaped. Most importantly, there is a proposed change to the property maintenance code, which would exempt this property from the provisions of the Main Street National Historic District. All parcels that are newly designated to a master plan zoning district require civic design review prior to any planning commission consideration. The staff also has a number of objections to the text changes in the zoning code, particularly those pertaining to the Main Street National Historic District and a mapping error on the maps themselves. For these reasons, the City Planning Commission, at its upcoming meeting on December 12, 2017, will request an additional 45 days for review, so that an airing of the plan can be made at the Civic Design Review Committee, because the Planning Commission cannot make a recommendation until that happens. I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Burns. Any questions for Ms. Burns on this bill? Okay, seeing none, there will be amendments offered at the meeting on this particular bill. Anyone else here to testify on bill number 170997? Seeing none, our next bill, please, Ms. Marconi.
Bill number 170959, an ordinance amending Chapter 14-600 of Philadelphia Code entitled Use Regulations by creating regulations for the daycare use and making related changes all under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you. Ms. Burns, please.
Good morning, Councilman Greenlee and members of the Rules Committee. I'm still Paula Burns, planner with the Development Division of the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I'm not going to say that the next time. I am here to testify on Bill number 170959, which was introduced into City Council on November 2nd, 2017 by Councilmember Parker. Bill number 170959 amends the Philadelphia Zoning Code by creating regulations for daycare use within the 9th Councilmatic District. This bill prohibits group daycare use, which is a service of between 6 to 12 children, in the RSA 5 residential single-family zoning district. The bill also forbids the expansion of family daycare, service of less than 6 children, to a maximum of 12 children by a special exception, as is currently allowed by the code. The City Planning Commission objects to the proposed amendment to the zoning code in Bill 170959 due to its uses of a political boundary to create zoning regulations. These boundaries change with the census every 10 years, leading to shifts that create a lack of clarity on the future of zoning regulations for areas near boundaries. We believe that is an inappropriate method for implementing such provisions. The Commission also has concerns regarding the changes proposed to the daycare use, as it believes they will increase the difficulty in obtaining approvals, lessening the supply of an important service to the residents of this district. The Philadelphia City Planning Commission considered Bill number 170959 at its meeting of November 21st, 2017, and did not recommend for the bill for approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Burns. All right, first, let the record reflect Councilwoman Parker, the sponsor of this bill, is present. Councilwoman, do you want to say anything? Or yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Let me briefly just note that, in essence, what this bill does is it ensures that home-based daycares with more than 6 kids, currently, they would have to get a special exception, right? And that is current law. However, this says that they would have to get a variance. The difference between the special exception versus the variance, because they both trigger the community process, is that with the variance, the burden is on the applicant to communicate with the community. When you have a special exception, the hardship is in essence placed on the community to describe why this is a special, why a special exception should even be offered here. For the record, and this is extremely important, I want to note the Planning Commission's objection relative to the use of political boundaries to create zoning regulations. I want to note for the record that there are currently overlays prohibiting more than 4 children in the family daycares in the 6th and in the 10th district. I want to note that what is different about what is happening in the 9th, as a long-time supporter of home-based daycares, as small business development anchors in our community, and as it relates to the educational services they provide. What we have in row homes, multiple blocks of row homes where we have home-based daycares, is that there is a growth, and we are in essence having economic engines in the heart of a residential block where we already have challenges with parking and other issues in the community. So as a supporter of these home-based providers, I say it is fine if you are interested in expanding the number of young people that you want to have. However, the process should always include the homeowners who are there, who when they purchased their house, they didn't purchase their home on a block that had a commercial business where it was going to have commercial business activity in the middle of a residential block. I just wanted to note that for the record. And I also just wanted to note, again, we support our home-based providers, communicating with both of them, because you remember with the legislation we passed, we want to support and provide technical assistance, help them improve their professionalism, and grow their economic engines. We just say that from a pure land use perspective, homeowners have a right to be engaged in the process that will determine whether or not a business use will change in the middle of a block that was residential when they first purchased it, particularly when it's a block of row homes. So those are my comments. Thank you so very much, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee.
Okay, thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Reynolds Brown?
Yes, I am compelled to make a point of information, and first let me say thank you. this was the very, very first bill I ever passed in year 2000 when I came to City Council, asking our council members to increase family child care from 4 to 6. Prior to year 2000, you could really only take care of 4 little people in your home. And it was a massive undertaking to move it to just 6 little people on your block. So to now hear that you are seeking to find out how we can support and keep whole home-based businesses and give them opportunity based on the provisions of your bill is good news. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other questions, comments? The record will reflect we have 2 letters, written testimony in support of this bill, one from Phil Gritzmacher of the Long Crest Community Association, and also from Monique Jones, and I love this name. She's the owner of Lovey Lee's Stars of Tomorrow, LLC. Okay? So both of those we've made part of the record. Do we have anyone else here to testify on bill number 170959? Seeing none, Ms. Marconi, our next bill, please.
Bill number 170960, an ordinance amending Title 14 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Zoning and Planning to create a new 9th District overlay to limit the materials that may be used on building facades and to make conforming amendments, all under certain terms and conditions.
Ms. Burns, please.
Okay. Hi, I'm Paula Burns. Good morning to everybody again. I am here to testify on bill number 170960, which is introduced into City Council on November 2nd, 2017 by Councilmember Dom for Councilmember Parker. Bill number 170960 creates a new 9th District overlay, which regulates all residential and commercially zoned properties in the 9th Councilmanic District. The new overlay would prohibit the use of vinyl siding, horizontal aluminum siding, and stucco to the extent that it covers more than 30% of the visible facade. If that facade can be viewed from any public right-of-way, all new construction and any substantial improvement must adhere to these new zoning prohibitions.
This one and one more.
The City Planning Commission objects to the creation of the overlay. First, because zoning permits are not required for the installation of these types of facades, and the bill does not change that fact. As written, there can be no enforcement via zoning permits. Secondly, there already exists a mechanism to control facades for the building permits. It is the Neighborhood Conservation Overlay District, NCO. These districts are created by city planning staff working with community groups to allow for maximum engagement to craft legislation to regulate items such as facades within a defined area. The City Planning Commission believes that neighborhood-specific NCOs offer a better and enforceable solution to unwanted facades. Lastly, even if this bill were amended to regulate the building permits, license and inspections would have great difficulty enforcing these rules. Currently, these types of facade changes only require an easy building permit application that does not require site plans, thus making the review and administration of these regulations difficult to enforce and expensive for property owners. While the City Planning Commission understands the desires of the district council person and her constituents, we believe that this is not the correct vehicle for making these changes to the zoning code. Thus, the City Planning Commission at its meeting of November 21st, 2017, did not recommend bill number 170960 for approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Burns. Before we hear from the other witness, any questions for Ms. Burns or comments? Or, yeah, please, Councilwoman Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I just wanted to make 2 comments. The first is that although we did just hear testimony, the testimony is on the bill as introduced. You all know and have before you an amendment that I will offer, and the amended legislation is in reference to feedback that we received from the development community along with residents, in which we're always trying to find a healthy compromise. I want to note that one amendment drops the substantial improvement provision so that the legislation will only apply to new construction. Another amendment changes the prohibition on vinyl siding, horizontal aluminum siding, and stucco to no more than 50% of the materials of any building facade that is facing the street. So we're talking about what is visible when you are driving down the street. And the last amendment it speaks to the historical nature of why properties in the 9th Council District as justification for why this legislation is needed. First and foremost, most of the homes built in the 9th were built before the 1950s. So we don't have a whole lot of nice, new, sexy construction there. Next, other cities define historic as properties more than 50 years old, which would apply to properties built in the late 1960s. In addition to that, I want to just note for the record, this is always so interesting when we have these discussions. I want to note that overlays relative to design standards are currently in existence. In Queen Village, Councilman Jones, you know you all have design standards in Roxborough, where you determine and define what kind of materials can be used to build in those areas. Even in Powelton Village, there are also design standards. So this concept that identifying design standards for a particular community relative to the architecture and the standard building materials that are used in those areas, that it is somehow a challenge, is really a little mind-boggling to me. Finally, I want to, and you all have a copy of this, I want to note for the record a line out of the Law Department's analysis of this bill. It comes from our city solicitor. It's an analysis of bill number 170960 as amended. And on page 3, the city solicitor says, I presume that if passed, this restriction would reflect council's legislative judgment that prohibited forms of materials detract from the aesthetics of the community and in turn detract from the desirability to live in the community and the property values therein. It would aid significantly in defending against any challenge to the ordinance if these legislative judgments and/or any purposes for the restrictions were supported by testimony on the legislative record. So I just wanted you all to know, members of the Rules Committee, that we've done our homework, we've gotten our legal opinion, we have community-based support for it, and I want you to don't hold it against the 9th Councilmatic District for thinking that it should be able to do what Queen Village, Roxborough, and Powelton Village has done. Thank you so very much.
Did I note sarcasm in that statement, Councilwoman Parker? Councilman Jones?
Yes. The reason why the Founding Fathers created both at-large members of council and district members of council is for this exact purpose, that you get to see the big picture view, but it is incumbent upon the district council person to know the nuances up close and personal about a community, and it takes time. In the case of Roxborough, Manioc, East Falls, it took me time to understand. I'm from a development background. I've done strip malls all over the world. Not all over the world, all over the city. But
you're getting carried away there.
Yeah, I'm getting But at a certain point, enough is enough, and you have to raise the bar. At some point, you'll take whatever you can get, and then at another point, you take what you want because the standard and values have risen. And so I completely understand, and you in the 9th District should have higher aspirations to be in other parts of Queen Village and other places. But I like what you got. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilman. I'm sorry, sir, you've been sitting there patiently. Would you please identify yourself for the record and proceed? Oh, and first, Councilwoman Bass, member of the committee, is present, so please.
Good morning, Chairman Greenlee and members of the Rules Committee. My name is Mack Duncan. I'm president of Minority Concerned Neighbors. I'm a Democratic committee person, 50th Ward, 7th Division, and I'm coordinator of our community Town Watch and Safe Corridor programs. I am here today to testify in favor of Councilwoman Parker's bill number 170960. I've been a resident of East Mount area for over 42 years, and most of the homes in our neighborhood are single-family homes made of brick and stone, the majority of which were built before in the early 1940s and 50s. My neighborhood consists of good, solid housing stock which some people even classify as historic. These are affordable homes, were built for the previous generations of middle class and remain affordable homes for today's middle class. Unfortunately, we have started to see in some cases where builders will tear down an existing structure, single-family home, and in that spot would like to put a two-family, a three-family, or four-family home in that exact same location. That increased density in the community, which in some cases causes overcrowding and other issues. It goes without saying that the new construction does not look or feel like the constructions that are in the current environment. The residents have considered such construction to bring down the value of the homes and even deter new families from moving in. What the residents do want for the existing homes to be preserved, and if not possible, for any new construction to resemble the feel and look like the current structures. That is why I am in support of Council Parker's Bill number 170960. The bill will require that any new residential or commercial properties of the 9th Councilmanic District to have no more than 50% vinyl siding, horizontal aluminum siding, or stucco on any street-facing facade. If the developer wants more than 50% of these materials on the street-facing facade, they will have to go through the zoning process, which includes going through the community-led RCO. I think this is only right. We are the existing residents of the neighborhood. We are committed to our neighborhood, and we should have a say in what goes on in our neighborhood and what it looks like. Thank you again, Councilwoman Parker, for this legislation, and for the members of the Rules Committee for listening to me. I appreciate your attention, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Duncan. Appreciate your time. Any questions for Mr. Duncan? Seeing none, again, thank you. And the record will also reflect we have a letter from the Building Industry Association that is supporting the bill as amended. Anyone else here to testify on bill number 170960? Sir, come on forward.
Thank you.
Please identify yourself and proceed.
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Charles Bodie. I'm with the West Powelton Saunders Park RCO. And our neighborhood is very similar to that described by the councilwoman and by the previous gentleman here. And for that reason, we would like to request to be included in this prohibition on what we view as substandard building materials. We don't see why only one council district should have the benefit of quality building materials. And we would like the West Powelton Saunders Park neighborhood to be included in not having stucco on aluminum and vinyl siding. Thank you.
All right, sir, I would suggest you talk to your district council person, Councilwoman Blackwell, about that.
But it's, as people say, it's a long process to get an overlay and so forth, and we should, all neighborhoods should have the benefits of quality building materials.
As I said, talk to your councilwoman. Okay, thank you. Any other questions or anyone else here, I'm sorry, to testify on bill number 170960? Seeing none, Ms. Marconi, our final bill today.
Bill number 170821, an ordinance amending Chapter 14-1000 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Historic Preservation to establish a temporary demolition moratorium with respect to properties in the areas of Ridge Avenue between Wissahickon Creek and Northwestern Avenue, all under certain terms and conditions.
Okay, before everybody comes walking up, just wait your time to be called, okay? And nobody's listening to me. Councilman Jones, please, first.
So as you can see, we have an enthusiastic group ready to testify. I just want to say good morning to you and the members of the committee and state for the record that it is my highest professional honor representing the people of the 4th Councilmanic District. One of the aspects, oh, you could, yeah, you can clap to that. You can clap to that. That's a cue. You can clap to that. No? All right, we're going to keep it moving. One of those highest honors, and one of the facts about being in the 4th Councilmatic District is 66% of Fairmount Park resides in this district. 66% of the park. It's not a bad backyard. However, you would think there would be an overabundance of green space everywhere, and that is not the case. My first contact with that fact was, I think, Germany Hill, when we found out that a hill that was decades in use wanted to be developed, and I discovered that sometimes there's such a thing as too much of a good thing. And that was further reinforced in the fact on Ridge Avenue when a beautiful mansion was torn down to make way for a Wendy's. Now, I love Wendy's burgers, but not to the chagrin of history. One of the oldest and most historic strips in my district is on Ridge Avenue. It borders Ridge Avenue, Wissahickon Creek, and the county line of Northwestern Avenue. Ridge Avenue was the favorite walking path for the Lenape Indians. Lenape Indians. Before the settlers of Europe, and many of them German descent. It is rumored that George Washington himself traveled down Ridge Avenue, then called Ridge Road, in the 1700s. Of the 300 properties that we want to have a moratorium on, the average age, Councilwoman Parker talked about 50-year-old properties, the average age is over 100 years old. Of those 300 properties, some of the highlights are the Grace Lutheran Church located at Ridge and Roxborough, built in 1909, which is relatively a new puppy. But the historic significance of that site goes all the way back to 1777, where members of the troop of the Virginia Dragoons were massacred by the British, who set fire to the barn they were hiding in. And when you walk that strip and when you sit with members of the community, you learn those facts. This is a historic site, but right maybe 150 yards from that site is a building that housed the Underground Railroad. So a lot of history, different eras, is along that 5-mile stretch. And as we will show, or it's going to be seen in the slideshow, there is a still standing stone and mud mortared house erected in 1717 that precedes the Revolutionary War. And so we want to take a look and take a pause, as Councilwoman Reynolds Brown would say, push the pause button, to take a look at these properties and to determine whether or not we can save them, restore them, or keep them in their current and better conditions. When you start talking about 200-year-old properties, we can do better. We can save some of the history that we have. There are 500 plus properties along that corridor. We're talking about examining 300 of them. I want to say that the people that educated me, I want to say a big thank you to. Because you don't grow up in West Philly on the other side of the water knowing these things. And sometimes you have to be educated to the significance of these things. And sometimes they're hard lessons. I want to tell you, they're not afraid to speak their mind. You will know what they think. And hopefully, if you keep an open mind, you will learn from what they think. So I had no idea about feral dogs when I first got elected, and really deer and antelope that actually play.
And owls.
And owls, and spotted owls. And so you learn those things in the 4th District, and if you really want to become a part of that community, you take them to heart. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to support this bill.
Okay, thank you, Councilman. I think you're still Ms. Burns, if you want to continue.
I'm still Ms. Burns. Good morning, Councilman Greenlee and members of the Rules Committee. I am Paula Burns, a planner at the Development Division. of the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I am here to testify on Bill number 170821, which was introduced into City Council on November 28, 2017 by Councilmember Jones. Bill number 170821 would amend the Philadelphia zoning code to establish a temporary demolition moratorium for properties on Ridge Avenue between Wissahickon Creek and Northwest Avenue. The moratorium would prohibit demolition unless it is necessary to abate an imminently dangerous condition or it is approved by the Historical Commission, treating the zone as though it were a historic district. It would be effective for 12 months or until the Historical Commission had initiated the designation process for at least 25% of the properties in the specified zone. The Historical Commission analyzed the bill and surveyed the 566 properties that abut this section of Ridge Avenue. The Commission identified 317 properties that may have historical significance and 249 properties that likely do not. The Commission recommended to the City Planning Commission that it support zoning bill number 170821, provided the moratorium is limited to the 317 properties that likely have historical significance. The City Planning Commission, at its meeting of November 21st, 2017, considered bill number 170821 and recommended it for approval with the amendment suggested by the Historical Commission. I will be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Burns. Why don't we hear from Mr. Farnham too, and we'll do then we'll have any questions.
Thank you, Councilman Greenlee. And I have a very brief PowerPoint presentation that will accompany my testimony, and I apologize in advance that much.
You're versatile, Ms. Burns. You do everything here.
Good morning, Councilman Greenlee and members of the Rules Committee. I am John Farnham, Executive Director of the Philadelphia Historical Commission, and I'm here to testify on Bill number 170821, which was introduced into City Council on September 28th, 2017 by Councilman Jones.
Ms. Farnham, maybe a little closer to the microphone, just a little louder, okay?
Yes. And I will try not to repeat my testimony. Much of it is very similar to
That's fine.
Ms. Brumbo's. So, as you were told, Bill number 170821 would amend the Historic Preservation Ordinance in the zoning code to establish a temporary demolition moratorium for all structures standing on properties abutting a 5-mile stretch of Ridge Avenue in Roxborough. The proposed ordinance would temporarily prohibit the demolition of the structures unless the Department of Licenses and Inspections determined that the demolition was necessary to abate an imminently dangerous condition, or the Historical Commission approved the demolition, treating the property as though it were part of a designated historic district. And the amendment would expire 12 months after becoming effective, or when the Historical Commission had initiated the designation process for at least 25% of the properties in the specified zone. If you go to the next slide, Paula. Very briefly, I'd just like to point out why this stretch of Ridge Avenue is so important. William Penn divided Roxborough into 11 parcels in 1681, and by 1690, the area was already beginning to be settled. And there you see within the box with the Schuylkill River on the right and Wissahickon Creek on the left and Wissahickon Creek on the right, that original map of Roxborough with the original 11 purchasers. Next, please. Initially, Ridge Avenue was a Native American trail, predates European settlement, and it was formally laid out in 1706, so very early road out of the city. There you see it labeled, again, between the Schuylkill and the Wissahickon as Wissahickon Road. And down on the left, a real estate advertisement from 1760, advertising the sale of a house fronting on Ridge Avenue, commonly called Wissahickon Road. So already by 1760, the area was being developed, and the route was a very important one. Next, please. Importantly, Ridge Avenue provided access from the city of Philadelphia to what was called the Great Wagon Road, or even the Great Philadelphia Wagon Road, which brought settlers from the city of Philadelphia who came in by ship out to the south and to the Midwest. And here we see, impossible to see at this distance, but Ridge Avenue connecting to that Great Wagon Road that took settlers down the spine of the Appalachians and out into the southern part of the Midwest. And this map dates from 1751, so already before the Revolutionary War, this was a very important route in and out of the city, a trade route. Next, please. And this is one of the houses that the councilman spoke of just a moment ago, with the earlier part on the right dating to 1717 and the later part to just after the Revolutionary War. Next, please. In 1777, the Philadelphia militia marched down Ridge Avenue and encountered Hessian troops, German mercenary troops, working for the British at the end of Ridge Avenue near the Wissahickon, and participated in the Battle of Germantown. We associate the battle with Germantown and with the Chew Mansion, but it really happened throughout Northwest Philadelphia. Next, please. Many important houses were built immediately after the founding of the nation. This is a very significant one at 6341 Ridge Avenue, built in 1796. Next, please. And other houses that are not as architecturally stylish, but tell us a lot about this period at the beginning of the new country, this one dating to 1811. Next, please. A map from 1843 showing Ridge Avenue running across Roxborough as really the primary road through the area, and a linear village developed on it. And down at the bottom, an advertisement for an omnibus that ran on Ridge Avenue, which is a precursor to the trolley omnibus, running as early as 1842 and opening up Roxborough for suburban development. Next, please. Suburban houses like this were built in Roxborough as early as 1850, so before the Civil War. Next. And not only residential buildings, but also commercial buildings like this one, a tavern or saloon. Next. And important institutional buildings like this church. Next, please. So you can see from this map, 1875, showing a detail in the center of Roxborough that it was, by that time, fairly densely developed. Next. And beautiful homes like this built along Ridge Avenue, these Second Empire houses, 55 and 5600 blocks dating to probably the 1870s. Next. And by the beginning of the 20th century, the community was built out as an important self-sustaining community. Here we see Manayunk in the foreground and Roxborough in the background, and many, many important historic buildings from from the beginning of the 18th century through the beginning of the 20th century survive. Next, please. And I'll continue with my written testimony here. A map showing the parcels that we indicated are likely to be historically significant from our survey. So the Historical Commission has analyzed the bill and surveyed the 566 properties that we identified that abut the section of Ridge Avenue. The Historical Commission currently regulates 13 of those properties with individual designations, so not very many, and no historic districts within the area. With its survey, the Historical Commission identified the 317 properties that are shown there, and that includes the 13 already designated, that could potentially be contributing resources in a historic district that have, because of their age and other architecture and other reasons, have potential historic significance, and concluded that the remaining 249 properties do not. The Historical Commission supports Zoning Bill number 170821 and recommends that the moratorium is limited to the 317 properties deemed to be potentially eligible for designation and potentially eligible for listing on the Philadelphia Register of Historic Places, and limiting the moratorium to those properties that are potentially historically significant will increase transparency and predictability with the Historical Commission's review process, preclude unnecessary reviews, reduce burdens on property owners, and allow the Historical Commission to focus its resources on historic buildings. And if the moratorium is implemented, the staff of the Historical Commission will reevaluate those 317 properties and then prepare one or more nominations proposing to designate the most significant of them to the Philadelphia Register of Historic Places within the 12-month effective period. Thank you for this opportunity to testify. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Farm.
Thank you.
Any questions, comments?
Just real quick, Mr. Chair. So why did we want this to come out of committee at this time? One of the things about that triggers demolition is the potential for historic certification. We wanted to avoid a stampede, if you would, of people going to file demolition permits just to have them on the on the books so that they could circumvent this review. And so we appreciate the committee for, in a timely way, hearing this request. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other questions or comments before we hear from the rest of the witnesses? Okay, seeing none. Ms. Marconi, I think we have 3 other names at least on our list.
Jeff Allegretti, Marlene Schleifer, and Paul Stanky.
Other than these 3, are there anyone else that wants to testify? Okay, great. Please, whoever would like to. Mr. Allegretti, I know we have your written testimony. We have Mr. Stanky. So Mr. Allegretti, yours is kind of long, so if you want to summarize, I'd appreciate it. Okay? Whoever would like to go first. Ladies first. Jeff, go ahead. A little closer microphone, please.
Sure. My intention was to actually testify for the 8 civics and walk you up the ridge, but that no longer seems necessary since it was done much more professionally than my narrative would allow. I would like to say, however, that you already have a letter signed by the 8 civics voicing unanimous support. And when you get 8 civics unanimously supporting anything, there's some energy behind it. And I also want to thank the Planning Commission and especially the Historical Commission for their efforts prior to this bill in helping us preserve the neighborhood, designating one of the properties that you saw there, as well as supporting the designation that came from a community member, saving historic vestiges in the neighborhood, and also working with us. We first met on this in March with the staff, and here we are in December. And all the veterans that I see before me understand that that's a pretty incredibly fast pace. And in my 30 years or more of doing civic work, I've never seen such movement with energy behind it and staff support. And especially would be incredibly remiss if we didn't thank Councilman Jones for hearing the pleas of the constituents, evaluating the issues in a balanced way, taking a 5-mile hike up the ridge. Thank you, sir. And then, through this ordinance, we think giving us time to do careful land planning so that there is a balanced approach at the end that understands we are not NIMBY anti-development folks, but we are serious about the preservation of the historical character of our neighborhood. Just want to say a couple of other things. I want to ask if we could add 5224 Ridge, which somehow didn't make it to the list, but it is a remarkable property in the Wissahickon Historic District. I sent Josh a copy of that, an image of that.
Say the address again, please.
5224 Ridge Avenue. It's a triangular corner schist and ornate metal bay commercial property that somehow is not on the list. And you will hear from Marlene, and you have the testimony of Don Simon from the Central Roxborough talking about
that'll be made
those,
part of the record. We have that here.
So let me just say that this unanimous support is because this moratorium will halt for only a brief time the headlong effort to destroy our past, and we have many examples of the loss. The Wendy's, as well as the Wissahickon Town Playhouse that is now a stucco box monstrosity, and to give the residents of the neighborhood time to create discrete districts so that the character that it values can be enhanced. So we urge this body to pass this ordinance with all deliberate speed.
Okay.
And thank you all.
Thank you. Ma'am, please.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Marlene Schleifer. I'm the Vice President of Ridge Park Civic Association. I'm also its RCO rep, and I am a Democratic Committee person as well. And I've been told I should also say I'm a park star. So everything everybody has already said can be echoed by me, but I don't see any point in doing that. My main concern, and you have my testimony, is that the Ridge Park section of the ridge has already been almost destroyed. And there are 4 properties that already have, or actually 5, that already have demolition permits affixed to them. And it's frightening that we now have car dealerships and Wawas and CVS's and everything but what should be there. And what I mentioned to one of my cohorts here is that I was afraid that if this moratorium didn't go through, in 5 years I wouldn't recognize my own neighborhood. And I've been here for 27 and been an activist for most of them. So I urge you to consider everything you've received, and I would definitely appreciate your support of this bill, and thank you again to Councilman Jones. You have been a wonder to us. Thank you.
He's a wonder to us, too. Or we wonder about him, one or the other. Mr. Stanky. I couldn't resist that, sorry.
Thank you and good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the Rules Committee. My name is Paul Steinke, Executive Director of the Preservation Alliance for Greater Philadelphia. The Preservation Alliance is in enthusiastic support of Bill number 170821. And you have our written testimony, which was submitted in advance. I won't read that, in part because Councilman Jones, the sponsor of this bill, said it better than we said in his opening remarks in terms of why this bill makes sense for Ridge Avenue and Roxborough. And the members of the community, what they said also made the point very, very well. So we are in support of this bill, and we hope that this bill will serve as a model for other historic commercial corridors around the city. Dr. Farnham did a great job showing just a fraction of the 317 buildings that have been identified along Ridge. And we are so grateful that Councilman Jones is taking a leadership role for their preservation. And I think about the other council districts around the city. I think about Councilwoman Bass's district with Germantown Avenue, which may even have more historic properties. It goes back even further. In Councilwoman Quinones Sanchez's district, Rising Sun Avenue, which used to connect to a tavern called the Rising Sun, where Rising Sun Avenue hits Broad Street. That's why it's called Rising Sun Avenue, is filled with properties like this. In Councilman Squilla's district, East Passyunk Avenue is worthy of consideration for this kind of protection. And not to leave anyone out, Councilman Heenan and the great Frankfurt Avenue, the King's Highway, that has been made famous in a new film, which I hope everyone here has seen, released this year about the history of the development of Frankfurt Avenue in many eras throughout Philadelphia's history. So with that in mind, again, thanks to Councilman Jones, and we urge the Rules Committee to pass this bill out of your committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments?
I'm sorry,
Thank you all very much. You have another one? Okay, please.
May I amend? I just learned that 5224 Ridge Avenue has a Dawson Street address on OPA and is on the list.
It is on the list, so, okay. Very good. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you. All right, sir, please identify. Other than this gentleman, anyone else here testify? Okay, great. This will be our last witness. Please, identify yourself and proceed.
Good morning. I'm David Traub. I'm the co-founder of Save Our Sites, and I represent that organization this morning. Save Our Sites is a citywide preservation organization. It's a nonprofit. We have about 250 members of our organization, some of whom live in the Roxborough-Matic area along Ridge Avenue. And I simply want to add that Save Our Sites heartily supports the moratorium bill, and we thank Councilman Curtis Jones for initiating it, and we think this is very, very important for the preservation of that historic neighborhood, but also it sets a precedent for further such moratorium bills in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. No questions or comments? Again, no one else here to testify on 170821? Seeing none, that will complete, I should say for the record, as was mentioned, Don Simon of Central Roxborough Civic Association has written testimony in support of this bill, and there will be amendments put in regarding those properties in the district that will be included. That completes our hearing of the Rules Committee, and we will very soon go into a public meeting. Just want to make sure I got everything right. Great. Everybody okay? All right. Okay. We're ready. Everybody okay? Okay. Yep. All right. As I said, very quickly, we are now into a public meeting of the Rules Committee. and the chair recognizes Councilman Squilla for approval of amendments. Hold on 1 second. If I could ask everybody just to hold down the conversation for just 1 more minute and we're good. All right?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the amendment to Bill number 170987.
Second.
We're doing the list. We're doing the amendment to Bill number 170997.
Hold. Please, okay? Just 1 more minute. We're going to finish.
I'll start over again, Mr. Chairman.
Please.
I'd like to move the amendments to Bill number 170987, 170997, 170960, and 170821.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. The amendments by Councilman Squilla be approved. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the amendments are approved. Chair again recognizes Councilman Squilla.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to move the following bills with a suspension of the rules to be read at the first session of council this week. Bill number 170927, Bill number 170986, Bill number 170987 as amended, Bill number 170990, Bill number 170997 as amended, Bill number 170959, Bill number 170960 as amended, and Bill number 170821 as amended.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. The bills with their appropriate amendments are reported out of this committee with a favorable recommendation and a rule suspension to allow for first reading at our next session of council. That completes the meeting of the Rules Committee. Thank you all for your participation. Now you can all talk.